Hello, my friends. Big Mark here. Secret behind the red doors. I'm an external location, as you could tell. I'm in a library, reading some books. But I shoot from the outside because I want to give you guys an update. Thanks for watching my last episode. You guys with Patreon or Cash App, I appreciate it. I want to give you an update on some stories and then also a show with Inside the Bergen. It's being built now. We're going to have professional, I'm telling you, movie filmmakers and a director is going to come there. You're going to see something you've never seen before. Inside the club, we're going to have people appearing, and it's going to, hopefully, we start filming in about 6 weeks. I want to tell all you guys, my subscribers, and all my viewers, tell your friends. It's going to be a weekly television show. You're going to get a pilot. You're going to love it. You're going to hear stuff you never heard before. You're going to see it in action. We're going to have some guys portraying different guys in the story, so give you an idea of a reenactment. But it's going to be the Bergen, and we want you guys to be part of it. To this show, it's going to be a weekly show, and right now we're definitely stream it for you guys. But I've been planning this for a long time. Been telling you, you've been loyal to me, and you're going to see it be something special, and it's going to change the genre. Remember, no rats, no bullshit, no stories, all the truth and stuff you want to hear about the old days with John and the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club. The secrets behind the red doors, my passion project, I told you that. So these stories I tell you, they have a great meaning to me growing up, especially in my 20s and back then the eras. You guys that follow my show know that era was kind of unique. I told you stories on a couple of shorts. I'm going to repost them again, give you an idea. Stories about a certain rat that everybody knows about, some of the bullshit stories they've been telling. I want you to see them stories again, and feedback. But the show's going to be great. We're ready to go, finally, after 3 months. But whatever, you guys want to get involved and help out or see it, I appreciate it. Funny thing, big thing about John when he used to come to the club and we used to leave. John went out a lot, dinner after the club. They go to the Ravenite, they go to city, whatever meetings, or they go they go to a restaurant somewhere, whatever, go out for drinks, be it Club A, even Regine's. John was popular in Regine's. And, the stories were, John was huge charisma, and the movie stars used to attract to him. And there was a scene in Taormina's one day. Taormina's was across the street from Joe Butcher's Club, famous restaurant, great food. It was on Mulberry Street. So Johnny was sitting there with a bunch of guys. He'd come back and he's sitting and he's telling us the club the next day. He's sitting there, and at the next table was Marlon Brando and Matthew Broderick and some people filming. And at that time, they were filming The Freshman. If you saw that picture of Matthew Broderick, Marlon Brando, and Bruno Kirby, funny picture, really good picture. So Matthew Broderick spotted John with some guys at the table, Taormina's, want to say hello, and one of the and Marlon Brando saw him. He says, ask Mr. Gotti if you'd like to come over here and have a drink with us, some wine, or have something to eat. So they came over. Matthew Broderick, but the directors came over to speak to John. Marlon Brando wants me to have a drink with him, of course. And he went over and met with Marlon Brando. And of course, Marlon Brando met him, picked his head a little bit, I guess, for the role and some other things. And they sat there, all these stars, looking at John in this, kind of in awe. Here was a notorious leader of the streets, but also funny, smart, and charisma that they couldn't separate from. So that was big for that. And you'd see the interactions, even when they shot The Freshman. You'll see pickup lines in that, or different lines in that they probably got from conversations with John. But that was John's connection to the streets and to even Hollywood. The problem with that is the feds didn't like that. Feds didn't like people being, liking John that way. But, that happens. What can you do? There's nothing you can do about it. That's the way it is. The press magnified him, and he was out there. But, like I says, these guys all talk about, well, he was too flashy, he was out in public. Listen, if you know the history of that in the 60s and 70s, he wasn't the first guy. Yeah, and like I said, so this story is about him, uh, connected to that life, but also about his personality and the people that followed him. I mean, his stories. John was a really good drinker. I mean, they said he used to have a lead belly when it comes to food or alcohol, and he could drink, and I've seen it. I mean, there was times till 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, leave the club. He'd be drinking in Richie's club or Out Front Social Club with a bunch of guys and us all night, ordering food till 5, and he's drinking either Remy Martin, or he's drinking a martini. But whatever it was, he wasn't the kind of drunk that you see guys wobble. For some reason, he held it pretty well. We had incidents, I explained, incidents about him telling me to drive him home. He had the black 4-door Lincoln at the time. And he tells me, listen, I'm going to drive. He says, come with me to the house. Take the car back with you. Come pick me up at 11 o'clock. Wake me up, come in the house, and I want you to take a ride with me somewhere. So I said, John, you want me to drive to Howard Beach? We're in Ozone Park. He goes, no, I'll drive. And he had a few drinks. And once you hit the cold air outside, the alcohol tends to get to you. But he was fine. So instead of taking 101st Ave, making a right 101st Avenue, going down to Woodhaven and taking it to Howard Beach, he's taking the back routes. And if you guys didn't hear the story, it's a true story, hilarious. He's turning up Pickin, up 97th Street, take the back way to come out to Cross Bay Boulevard. And as he turns a corner, he's driving a little sharp. He's a little, how would I say, rambunctious. He's trying to get home. It's like sunrise, 6:31, and he makes a turn on 96th Street, and he happens to, a car pulls up at a corner with two people driving it, and he sideswipes them, but not hard, just like he scrapes them. And he says, oh shit, he pulls over. And in the car was two old ladies. Now, for you guys who didn't hear the story, I'm going to tell you again. An event happened that was kind of hilarious, but he pulls over, he goes, oh God, he says. This woman comes out yelling at him, and I mean yelling at him. What are you, nuts? You did to my car. And John looks, the car's an old car, 15 years old. He's taking his pocket, he's ripping out $400-500. Here, go get your car fixed. The car ain't even worth $500. What? Don't talk about my car that way. She's yelling at him. She don't know who he is. And John's, the gentleman, he's pissed off at himself. And he looks at me, he says, listen, I'm calling the cops. So on the corner was a phone booth. He calls the cops. He goes, all right. He says, cops pull up, patrol car, pulls up behind the Lincoln. The cop gets out, and he looks, and he sees it. He says, license registration. He looks. And he tells the other cop, he goes, come here. He says, how you doing, Mr. Gotti? He says, how you doing? He says, what happened? He says, a woman came up to the corner. I made the turn too sharp, and I just sideswiped. I got a scratch on a fender. I go for the 500. The car ain't worth 500. Says, all right, let me see if I could settle it for you. Goes to the lady, I want a new car. Ma'am, he just offered you 500 for your car. I don't think your car's worth 500. You get it fixed, you get a paint job. You just want to go home. He's tired. Yeah, but it's just, I recommend you do that because if you claim it with insurance, and the lady's getting defiant. But he's arrogant. I don't care what you think. He's a big shot because you drive a Lincoln, and John's just sitting in the car with his head down. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. Finally, she takes the 500 from him, and she drives off. Cop says, okay, Mr. Gotti, I'm sorry. He says, thank you, officer. No, I appreciate it. I'm glad everything is fine. So as he walks over, Johnny pulls in, he gets a $100 bill. He said, here, two $50 bills. He says, take it. Go to the cop car, thank the cops, he says, he says, hand it to them, tell them to go buy breakfast, take their wife out to dinner or something. So the cops, I come over to John wants to thank you for being gentleman and understanding. Nah, it's no problem. He says, we don't want no problem. And that woman had no idea who he was, so she would get more. So I take the 50s, I says, here, this from him. And the cop looks at his partner, goes like this, looks at me and goes, just drop it on the floor. Don't hand it to us. Drop it on the floor. Drop it on the floor. Thank you. Tell them have a great day. They pull out and get away. But that was the scene. You had to watch these two old women yell at him. It was hilarious. I'm trying to hold it in. He's got his head down. He's not looking at him. All right, lady. I'm like, but that's John. So he knew how, instead of some guys, especially with drunk, get out of here. He was just held his composure. But that's that neighborhood too. Even the cops knew him. They knew it was nothing a big deal. And, he was being respectful. But I told that story. I don't know if a lot of you guys saw that, but that's a true story. But that next morning, I went home. I dropped him off. He says 11 o'clock. I went home, took a nap for 2-3 hours, came back 11 o'clock, and I ring the bell, and his wife answers, says, "Go wait in the den. He's coming. He's getting dressed." I come down. Come on, let's go. I got an appointment at 2 o'clock. I goes to the club. I'm going to the club. Pulls up in front of the club. Right? He goes, because okay, listen, I gotta go to. He says, "There's a horse running in the third race." He says he takes out $1,000. Go bet the horse. He says, if the horse wins, he says, collect the money and meet me. I'll be at Marty's East. He was there with Joe the Cat, I think Tony Pep. If it doesn't lose, stay in Ozone Park. The horse wins, pays $8. $8 horse, 1,000 to win on him. It's $4,000. I take the $4,000 and I drive to. I take a cab into Manhattan. Go to Marty's East, and he's seen some famous singer. She was a jazz singer, her and her husband, and they're having dinner. It was Joe the Cat, his son Eddie, Tony Pep, and John. And I show up, I hand him $4,000, sit, eat. I end up hanging out with them. That was John. John just like, go home. You're there, you hang out, have something to eat, watch the show, have a drink. And I stood there for 2-3 hours as guys were coming in and out. They were celebrities, Broadway actors, Jerry Orbach. Hey, I'm Mr. Gotti. Hey, Jerry, how you doing? They said, all say hello. But that's true stories from the early '80s. A lot. But it wasn't just me that he did this to. But that's a situation I want to share with you. And John was John. John was, he was called by many guys. He was a hoodlum's hoodlum, and people respected him, but also respected him because, like I says, total underdog guy. I don't care how many guys. I told you stories about Tony Roach. Give Tony Roach 1,000,000 shots. Helped him out. Tony had a drug problem. Tony was a degenerate gambler. Johnny kept on trying to help him. Angelo trust company. Gene. They were all. It wasn't like a one shot and chase you deal, And all them guys around there. But it was funny too. Another story about the club. That club was run by when Charlie Deke came out of prison. They got a spot in there with Pete and little Jackie Cavallo, who was around Jeannie's guy. But they had like a partnership, the poker game. They pretty much ran a club. And Jackie had a routine. Back then, I think the first time I saw Jackie had a 77 or 78 Cadillac. It was yellow, canary yellow. And Jackie had constantly, every day, washing and waxing that car. Jackie was an excellent dresser, always fashionable, always had a tan. Jackie was a short guy. And Jackie loved to party too, loved to drink. And Jackie had a penchant of drinking a lot. And there's a guy that had rough life. He had heart problems in his 30s. I remember they would tell me one surgery, I think they took the heart out of his body to do a blood transfusion or something, but he had heart problems throughout his life. Never didn't stop him from smoking a cigarette and when Jackie drank when he wanted to, he drank a little bit too much, and he was a little, a little wacky, but not a bad guy, he was, remember, but I used to say, Jack, you got a Napoleon complex. The only problem with Napoleon had to fend for himself once his army failed him. You got all these guys around, he used to laugh, but I'm telling you, wash the car, constantly waxing the car. He was one of the guys who were early in the morning, and Jackie handles affairs for Jeannie. He was always there around Jeannie, Joey, and Frankie the Bear, but that's one of the regulars there, but that was every day, so, and all through these visits, if, like I said, if DB came by to see John, I said Mickey Boy came by to see John. He was a good guy. Mickey Boy was funny, pure tough guy, loved to gamble, loved to bet horses, but Mickey Boy and John go back, way back. Mickey Boy was, I would say, built like a, like a bull, I hate to say the name because it's the other guy's name, but Mickey Boy was a pure tough guy, but a, funny guy too, sense of humor. So in that show that we're going to do, we're going to have guys without really, speaking much, but they're going to interact with me and, other guys. Right now, I says, I'm by myself. Kevin's been busy, and he's been busy. He'll be back, I promise you. Kevin's part of the show. He's my friend for 40 years, he's a good guy, and he got a lot of experience on the streets, and he adds a certain kind of different flavor to the show. But you're going to love the premise of the set, I promise you. And I always want to say this, and why you guys ask me, why don't you mention his name? Why should I mention their names? You know who they are. A lot of you guys are smart. I believe in your intelligence that watch these shows. You guys are in this genre. They're not part of the genre. They have their own thing. We're doing something different here. I'm not promoting that life, but I am respecting and telling you the honest, true events as I see them. It's almost like it's my life growing up there, spending 15 years. The guys coming and going, how they drank, what foods they ate, different guys that hung around. Listen, we go to the track, funny incidents, or go to the trotters, or just playing cards, just hanging out in Richie's Club, cooking chestnuts in a fireplace. John would have drinks and play cards with the neighborhood Italian guys. That's why they respected him. That's why they looked up to him. I mean, he interacted with them. He didn't cut himself off as he arose in his ascension as a leader. And his brothers were like that too. They're all genuinely neighborhood guys, and when you came to neighborhood, I don't care if you were, good-looking Jackie, you were Arnold or Funzy, you got to know these guys, and you got to interact with them because it was part of John's makeup, that whole section around there, and like I told you, the other guys in the street from different neighborhoods that come to see him had problems. You want to hear, guys talking, he's too flashy. Listen, there was guys on TV in the 60s and 70s, bosses. They were giving interviews. John never sat down and gave an interview. John went to Marion and died in prison, suffering. All he had to do was sign a piece of paper, would never admit it. You respect the guy for that. Even if you don't like the lifestyle. You don't have to like the lifestyle. To me, he says, honestly, the lifestyles you pick and choose. I got away from it because I didn't care for it after a while. It just didn't fit my personality. I'm not going to talk bad about them for it. It's like talking about, you see what's going on in this world. These people found an outlet to make money. Most of it's, like I said, the gambling aspect, bookies. It was a big business. Now you got all the pro bookie joints taking their business, and now they're making billions with it. So there's something to what they developed back then, right? You got all these websites with gambling, numbers. You play numbers in every state now. That was from the streets of Harlem and, the Dutch Schultz and them guys in the mob. They started the policy numbers, but now the state governments took on the game as itself. So, you figure that out. So these guys them guys developed that life with pretty sharp guys, from the unions. There was no unions back then. Okay, sure. Did they probably make money off the unions? Of course. But what are they going to do for nothing? It's not charity. But so this is that process. So my time in the 80s, early 80s to the early 90s when John went away, it was fun. We went out to clubs. We go anywhere. Restaurants. You get treated like gold. Paid, tipped. They knew they were getting tipped. Johnny was a force for that. Make sure you take care of the place. This story about Johnny went to dinner. Joe DeCandia, great guy. He owned Lenny's Clam Bar, right? And and Tony Roma's, but like Joe DeCandia, John went there with a bunch of guys. He wanted a place in the neighborhood just to go hide away, go eat dinner. And there was like 10 guys, and they were eating, drinking bottles of wine. I don't know, the tab had to be a couple thousand, 2,000, 3,000. And Joe, the old man, gentleman, remember him? He used to do the commercials, enjoy a glass of wine on the house with Lenny's Clam Bar. Joe came to John. He says, John, it's on me, no tip. John says, no, you can't do that. He says, no, it's on me. You come to my restaurant, it's on me. I don't want to charge you. And John was at me. He says, listen, Joe, you're a good man. He says, listen, you don't charge me, I'm going to be disappointed at you, and I'll be pissed at you. And you know what? We won't come back because this is a business. Business is business. You're in business. Some guys work hard. And if I won't come back because I don't think that I want to come, my guys will come back and not have to pay. Charge me. Don't worry about it. I want to take it. So Joe says, how about give me half price and give the rest of the money to the workers, John says. Joe says, good. So I think the tab was like 20-something. John gave him money, and he gave the $1,100 to the waiters. This is the 80s. That's some tip. So that's the personality. So his personality, just like Jeannie, just like Angela, we all picked up on it. And so even as young guys, if you get $100 tab, $200, never take no shit from nobody, no disrespect. A big thing. Who you with? We were taught young. You don't say that. Don't ever mention names. Don't mention, what neighborhood you hang out with. I can't tell you how many guys, us, going out with, Pete, Tom, all of us, and crack guys, or abuse them for doing that, living that, and then now you have, guys talking about nonsense. They took it to a level where it become a game. So, but you guys lived in Ozone Park, Howard Beach, even guys who didn't, grew up in East New York or Brownsville. These guys were kind of unique, that whole section. I'm not talking about just Johnny, but everybody with Tony, with Tony Lee and them guys, and Andy and Nick and all them guys. They all came from that whole area, and they all had a sense of, pretty much, you could see that they all had the same kind of mentality about that life in that section. Not to denigrate guys from the Bronx or Manhattan. That's, I'm not saying that, but I can only talk about what I've seen. So when you hear stories about them, the few, how would I say, old takers who ratted or whatever, they're telling you stories about they'd had no experience with that guy, and that's wrong. I can't tell you stories about their guys. I might have met him hello. I'll say I met him hello, but that's it. So I just want to thank you guys, and I want you to understand that that's the way I see that life. Kevin will tell you the same thing when he comes back on. The guests we have on in our studio, in our set, wait till you see the burger. You guys are gonna love it. You're gonna love the setup. And they got 2 cameramen to be professionally shot. We're gonna have a weekly show with a pilot. You're gonna love it. And if we gotta shoot it ourselves, air it ourselves on streaming networks, you could join up. It's gonna be so affordable, but you're gonna be part of the show. It's gonna run episodes for a year, scheduled, not waiting for me, skipping. It's gonna be steady, and you'll be part of the Bergen action from the late 70s all the way up. You're gonna see chronological, and you're gonna be part of it. And it's, it's gonna be something good. And these stories are from the heart. It's a time. Listen, I'm a lot older now. A lot of you guys are older, even some of my friends out there. And why let it skip by? But I want you to hear from a guy who's there every day, not a guy who's there once in a while or once in 3 weeks. Only there was a problem, because you missed out on a lot of the mechanism, the nuts and bolts. It's me, Mark Caputo. There's no reason for me to say anything but what I saw, and what I witnessed, and not only that, but what I interacted with. Listen, I'm here to praise myself. I was one of the associates. I'll be honest. Nobody feared. I didn't fear nobody. I didn't care. And I was a bully. I was a gentleman. Made a lot of friends. But if I had to, I did what I had to do. And that's the way them guys were like that. They didn't go around bullying people. But if you had to take care of business or settle a problem, you did it. So. But the crap game episodes, when they moved, listen, it was crap game. There's some, John loved to pay craps at his own game. Now you think about it, it's kind of stupid, but that was John. He wanted to gamble. That was his crap game. So if Johnny got creamed and lost money, the crap game took a hit. It took a red. We went in a red, and the guys had to put up with it until they got back in the black. But sometimes you wonder, but Johnny couldn't resist throwing dice, joking around. There was the times. I'm gonna tell you, we went to go see me, Pete, Tommy. It was about 6 or 7 of us. They went to go watch the Jerry Cooney fight, and they were playing. They went to Atlantic City to watch it on a big screen, in the auditorium. They had food, but that episode I'm gonna tell you about. Also, I'm gonna add to that story about Maspit I told you about. It's gonna be a little video about that guy, that loudmouth liar that has to constantly build up his own ego, how special he was, and I'm not going to say his name because everybody knows his name, so I'm not, but you guys know his name and you guys judge that. The guy's making up stories as he goes along, and about John, and it's amazing how they talk bad about people when they're gone. But if they're in front of their face, they couldn't talk bad about them. And don't listen to you watch that stupid Gotti movie with, listen, Armand Assante, great actor, but that movie was nonsense. Nonsense. Well, I'm sorry. They had to go backwards. I'm going to tell a story about that when John went to jail, when him and Angelo had go and they did a favor for Don Carlo for the McBratney, the guys who kidnapped his nephew, and John and going to wait for that. But they had John showing up to go meet Neil and Paul with Don Carlo, and they had Sammy there open the door. In the 70s, never happened. But the movie guys seemed to put him in there for no reason whatsoever. So, that movies, they played around with all that nonsense. But the Red Doors, my show, to the T, everything. If it's didn't really happen or not the truth of the everyday events, we're not going to air it. We're not going to make up any stories. But and them other guys out there in their YouTube channel, I don't wish them bad. Listen, I don't pay attention to them, whatever, but, let them talk about themselves. Stop talking about other people they got no experience with or never spent time with. That's the way it should be. But like I says, I wanted to shoot this. It's Friday. I'm not in the studio. I'll be there next Wednesday. But I just wanted you to catch up on some stories. And, a funny thing, guys, I seen videos talking about Angelo Quack Quack and, the tapes. There's a lot more to that incident with Paul. Kevin's going to tell you some other things, and we're going to talk about it. You're going to hear stuff you never heard before in the next taping. I promise you. I want you to tune in. It's going to be something you're never going to expect, but it's a true story. And I remember when Kevin got that happened, and Kevin is going to tell the story. I remember that day afterwards, Johnny came back to Queens and was in a nasty mood. You're going to hear about it. I want you to subscribe. I want you to like everything. I says, I'm going to do a live event. I'm going to do it with Kevin. Maybe we'll do a couple of live calls in from the Bergen. You'll love that part. But I want you to come to the next show. You want to hear this story. I'm telling you, give you a little idea about John's honor and his personal, his iconic structure he had, and how he got offended by a lot of them guys, by Paul especially. Come back for next week's show. Like I says, I got my Patreon, but I have, guys want to help out, it helps, whatever. I'm not going to beg, but if it helps for getting this show on the road, my Cash App is up there. You'll be part of it. Listen, we're going to have a live audience. I'm going to show you. I'm going to post the pictures of us building the set. But look how big the set is where we can have a live audience. So if you guys in the area, in New York or Florida, want to come down and watch a live episode, we're going to have that too. But this is Big Mark. Listen, I want you to stay healthy. Stay with your family. God bless. And nothing but honor and respect to each other, and all about positivity, my friends. But come back if you want to hear that really intense story. Only 3 guys were in the car that day that got that information, and then when John came back the day to the club, he was pissed off, and I'm going to let Kevin tell you why, and I'm going to add to it afterwards about the events by the club. So come back for that next one. You don't want to miss this. So like and subscribe. Enjoy the weekend. Stay well. And we'll talk to you soon. Ciao.